All righty. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. We've got a wonderful guest today. We've been on a solid streak of getting some Rangers to join us, and we've got another H Company Ranger who one of our prior guests, Mr. Charlie Ochoa, hooked us up with, and Mr. Dan, our guest today, knew Mr. Charlie. And we're going to get some good stories and a lot of great photos to talk about, not only gear, because I know y'all are always interested in the gear, but we've got some great photos from a very interesting mission that Mr. Dan ran, I believe in '69. But Mr. Dan was, as I said earlier, he was a staff sergeant, E6 with Company H of the 75th Infantry, Ranger, Airborne LRRPs, and they were attached to the 1st Air Cavalry Division. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Mr. Dan and let him get started introducing himself.
Hi, glad to be here, and thank you, Bud, for asking me to join your podcast. In 1968, I joined the Army. I had just graduated from high school. I actually had a job with the telephone company out in California. A buddy of mine in high school, we had planned to join the Airborne at the same time, but I guess he got wet feet on that, and he ended up joining the Navy. And he come back after a year or two, and I said, well, "What happened? I thought we were going to go down to the recruiter and get into the Army, go to jump school." Oh, I just had to get out. So I went down and joined. The war was still going on, of course, in '68, hot and heavy. I think '68 was Tet, so I hadn't been in the service, but I went to Fort Ord, which is now not a base out in California. Went through basic training. At the time, I had signed up for to be a radio operator and to go to jump school. So I took advanced training radio out of Fort Ord. Then they put us on a plane, sent us to Fort Benning for jump school, and that was fun. It was good because every morning, I mean, back then, and I don't know how they do it now, but it was nothing but harass, even in basic training. But at Fort Benning, you were assigned a number in jump school, and they would say, "Look to your left, look to your right. Tomorrow morning, half those people won't be there." Well, surprisingly, that's really what happened. So I don't know how many were successful. And at the time, being a 18-year-old, I had 18, 19. I had no idea that what it was going to be like. So, I toughed through it, got through the training. They woke us up at 2 o'clock in the morning, the first day of Jump 1, had us remove, this is a kind of harassment, had us remove everything out of the barracks, out into the just outside the barracks, scrub the floor, then move everything back, and then you could go back to bed. But I remember that first jump, we got on an airplane, and it was called a boxcar. I think it was a boxcar. I don't know what the name was, but it was an old prop job. And that prop job, just you're watching the trees go from window to window to window, and all of a sudden the trees are going a little faster, and then the plane takes off. least we thought it took off, got in the air at our first jump. When they opened the door, they talked about the hawk, the wind, the noise. Everybody got up and hooked up their lines, checked their things, and shuffled to the door. So my first 5 jumps were in I guess a Korean War boxcar. I forget what the plane was called, but and then I graduated from jump school, ended up at the 82nd Airborne in Fort Bragg, and that's where I got my first C-130 jump, night jumps, C-141s. I love the C-141s because that jet would just fly along, and you'd open the door and you'd hear kind of a different sounding hawk jump out, and then all of a sudden you were in quiet night jumps and everything. And then I think in about January, my first sergeant come up to me and said, "Hey, you're AOL from Vietnam. Why the hell are you here?" And I go, "What are you talking about? I've been here. You've seen me every morning. Roll call." So they said, "Well, you got some new orders. You're going." And I said, "Well, fine." I wasn't looking necessarily to go. And then I ended up in Fort Lewis in the transit company. And anybody that had a transit company, been in transit in the military, you know what that's like. That's kind of crazy. And I remember I was there for about a week, and I was already a Spec 4, Specialist 4, because of radio operator. I didn't have 11 Bravo training or infantry or anything other than the basic training. And so I go to get on the airplane, and a lieutenant says, "You can't go to Vietnam." And I said, "Why not?" "Your hair's too long." And I said, "What the heck are you talking about?" I'm going, "What difference does it make?" So
I'm going to fight a war here. I mean, what?
Yeah, and I go, "This is crazy." Now remember, this is in 68 or 69. That was actually in 69. I had already been at the 82nd Airborne. I don't know how many jumps I had, but if we knew that they were having a jump, we'd go get on the list and get out there, because then you didn't have to screw around and do your daily duty. You can get out there, jump, and have fun or whatever. It was fun. Of course, I was a stupid teenager still, 18, 19. Yeah, I guess I'd have been a teenager up to 19.
Mm-hmm.
But it was crazy. So I ended up staying at Fort Lewis for another week, trying to ditch mowing grass for the general's house or picking up cigarette butts. I never smoked, and one thing that made me mad was, why would I have to pick up all these cigarette butts?
Someone else's cigarettes.
Yeah. And so got on the plane, and of course it went through, it went through Alaska. It went up and over and down to Vietnam. And I'll never forget a lot of stuff, but we finally landed in Vietnam. I forget how many hours it was. It was just a miserable flight, plus you didn't know what was happening on the other end. And I remember I landed in Cam Ranh Bay, I think it was, and they opened the door.
Oh.
And, oh my gosh. The heat, the weather, the stink.
Oh.
So we got off and started processing in country. So
Are
I
you
had
are you
thought,
are you processing in at Cameron Bay, or where are you guys at?
well, you had some process in Cameron Bay, but then I ended up in On K at the first
Yeah.
cab. That's when they were in On K, and then they were going to move down to, and I don't remember where the headquarters was, but we moved down to Fuc Ven is where I ended up. Uh, but it was crazy. So you didn't know what was going on. Ted had just happened a few months before, and this was during the buildup. So there was a lot of people. I don't know if you wanted me to take a break or continue on.
I mean, when you're getting there, y'all have landed and you're checking in. So you just mentioned you're at On K where the first cav is. Are you now? You had mentioned being with the 82nd. Are you now officially being transferred over for combat duty with the first cav?
Yes.
Yes.
Let
Okay.
me talk a little bit about that.
Hmm.
Well, I was, being, if you know the special forces or being airborne, you feel that you're a little above everybody else. You don't want to go to a straight lace regular army unit. I mean, you want to go there. And at the time, the 82nd had a battalion in Vietnam. 101st was in Vietnam. 173rd was in Vietnam. And I'm looking for the Screaming Eagle patch, and all I see is this big yellow with a horse on it. So I'm processing through the line, and somebody had the guy in front of me said, "Well, where do you want to go?" And I said, "What do you mean, where do I want to go? I've never had a choice of anything. Those have been in the service, any service. There ain't no choice. You just do what they tell you." Um, so I said, "Well, I don't know. Where the hell am I?" "Well, you're with the first cab." And I said, "What the heck's the first cab?" And they go, "Well, it's the first cab. You're here." And I said, "Well, how can I get my jump pay?" That almighty $55 at the time. Okay. And I looked at them and said, "Well, how can I get my jump pay?" And they said, "Well, there's a couple of ways. You could join the Pathfinders, but those are all E8s and E9s, and you're not going to get in there." And I go, "Okay, what? Is there anything else?" And they say, "Well, you can join the LRRPs." And I go, "What the heck's a LRRP?" And they go, "Well, only thing you need to know is that their life expectancy is about," now remember, I was 18, stupid and young. Uh, "Life expectancy is about 2 months." And I said, "2 months? Huh. Well, do I get my jump pay?" $55 back then was like 10 cases of beer, keep in mind. We're talking 69. And I said, "That's where I want to go." So they said, "Okay, we'll sign you up," because it was an all volunteer organization. You didn't have to be officially ranger trained back stateside, because if you remember, they were having the draft because people didn't want to necessarily go into the service or take that time away from their lives. So I ended up walking into Fuc Ven. It was an air base also, so they had these big, humongous things where they pulled the planes in. It wasn't a hooch. It was a lot bigger than a hooch, you know.
The
And
revetment
they pull in
areas.
the airplanes to work on and all that. So we were right next to the airfield. You know, you could stand up anywhere in the company area. Yeah, you can see that's the company area. And the airfield was down at the bottom and out that gate. But if you look there, you have the over on the left-hand side, you have the supply tent. The next tent would be the headquarters, and the regular tent would be the training tent. Then over to the left, you can see a lot of trucks and stuff. That would have been the motor pool for the first cab. That wasn't our motor pool. So on the right-hand side, you would have first platoon and second platoon. So the company had two platoons. I forget how many guys were there or how many teams were run out of. I primarily was on team 3-2 and 3-4 my whole period of time that I was out in the field. All we had was a truck and a couple of Jeeps and the mule. I think there's a picture of the mule.
Yes,
But I love that mule. There you go. You would all pile on there. You can see the mule's got all of our packs and equipment waiting for us to get on. Go ahead and load up and get out to the tarmac. Well, that brings back memories. And the mud, you don't see a lot of mud right yet because there's no monsoon wasn't happening then. That was the dead of summer probably. You'd load up on that, but I don't know what happened. I'd love to have one of those little mules. They were pretty good. You could take the seat or take the steering wheel and be laying on the ground and driving the thing if you needed to.
wow.
So I ended up in Bookvin, and the first night there, they put me in the training tent. And I'm laying in now. Remember, for people of my age, you grew up after World War II. A lot of people, kids in your class would be talking about their dad having won a Silver Star, Bronze Star. But you had movies on TV like John Wayne. Well, yeah, old John there. You had Combat with Vic Morrow every Tuesday night. Of course, you know who was watching. Boy, that stuff looked pretty good. You know, maybe not the killing, but so I'm laying there, and at that time I was small enough, of course, to lay on my belly, and I remember all of a sudden explosions. So I lifted up, and the tent sides were rolled up. So I look up, and I see a mortar, just like the movies, no more than maybe 20, 30 feet from me. Got excited there. You saw my camera jumped off. But one mortar, then you heard, pooh, second mortar. Well, I'm brand new in the company. You know, they did have bunkers, but none of us in the training tent knew anything. So we jump up and we know, hey, those things are right in front of us. We're talking explosions, 3, 4 of them. And we're running around bumping into each other. It looked like the Keystone Cops yelling, where's the bunker? Where's the bunker? And that's when I realized, a 2-month life expectancy. Well, they got us zeroed in on the rockets or mortar fires. Now, of course, most of the big bases, or even the little bases, the fire support bases, had 105s or 155s. And if you've ever been around those things going off, they scared you too until you realized what the outgoing sounded like versus the incoming. So the first night after we all bumped into each other, I don't think we ever found a bunker to get into. But after about 3 or 4 rounds, and you could tell when they were coming in, most of the time after you'd been there more than a day, you could hear thump, 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 because they'd come up to the green line outside the base. And because you had a motor pool, you had the 109th quick reactionary force right next to us. You had the air base. You had all the helicopters and any planes that were there at the time. They had prime targeting. But you would hear thump, thump, thump. Once you heard the thump, you were out of your bed just automatically and in the bunker. Fortunately, it hit one of our outhouses, blew it to shreds. Another time. Now that was mortar, because every time you hit a mortar, it goes a little further. So, the mortar's kind of walking in. So if they've got you sighted in, just like that first night, where the mortars are hitting and you're not that far away. Plus, this is live now. They're not playing. When you're in training and you're crawling under the M60 fire and the explosions and stuff like that, you kind of know that M60 is it's welded so it don't go down to the ground. So, you knew you were going to be safe as long as you didn't do something stupid like stand up. But once you heard those thumps, you were out of there, you were in the bunker, and you were waiting. And I think even today, one of the worst things is to hear thump, 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 and know they've got you sighted in. We had one of them hit the barracks of the 109, killed a couple of people in there. Poor guys were just sleeping. It's crazy. Oh yeah, there we go. I even have a diagram. Motor pool, first platoon, and there's the Keystone cops running around there trying to figure out where the hell to go. And that's you don't want to be on the other end of the mortar fire or rocket fire. But that's still today one of the worst things. I think it's because you don't have control. If you didn't have control, and that was probably one of the worst things. But now I'm ready for training. The actual training in company or in country training, there were a couple of different training exercises. In the company training, you had a 3-week program, and I don't remember, do I have towards the end of their training schedule in that?
Check. I know you've got, which I hope we can talk about, Recondo, but I'm looking for in-country training.
It would be towards the end. It would be a training schedule of mimeographed copy.
There's Maguire Rig Training.
Will be towards
No,
the.
sir. It's got. I'll show you right here. It's got. Just the only training aspect I found is the Recondo school and Maguire Rig.
Okay, yeah, that and the other training was a MACV school out in the train.
Could you before you get into the train, could you tell us a little bit about what the in-country Ranger RIP, or what was it known as? Just in-country Ranger training, or what?
Well, it was the training that you got. I think most companies had some type of training in-country training program, but ours was 3 weeks. You had classroom training, and at the end of when they pulled me out of the field towards the end of my stay in Vietnam, I was a training NCO, and I actually trained. I'm trying to remember 3 or 4 classes, and what that entailed is we taught how you call in artillery, what you did on your mission, how to collect intelligence,
Selecting RON locations and such.
Right. How to read maps. And I bet you many people, you could see those are real maps in the bottom of that presentation down by the train. But so you had map training, you had a lot of exercises. If you go down, well, you can see that that's one of the hangars that was right across the street from us on the left. You can see that I've got people up there doing Maguire Rig Training. No, it was those of us that been to Disneyland out in California. Now, I don't know how we got seashells on somebody asked me once, yeah, how'd you get seashells on your skid? Well, I don't know. They were just helicopters, you know. But that's what it looks like out of the helicopter down to that's a Maguire rig. Back then, we didn't have a lot of harness stuff. Of course, we had it for parachuting. You had ropes, so you had to tie square knots or double loop knots. I don't even know how to do it anymore, probably. But you can see that you've got one person hanging on each rope that was tied off in the D-rings inside the helicopter. So if you had a 5-man team, you'd have one helicopter with 5 ropes. If you had a 6-man team, you would need 6 ropes to pull them out of the jungle.
Didn't Ranger companies have what y'all would call a belly man to help with this process?
Well, the lieutenant would go out on the helicopter. Lieutenants in the company had, there's a picture of me. There we are. That's actually a picture of my last mission where that's Charlie Ochoa there, where we were going to repel into the jungle. They wanted me to take a team out and check and see if, check a potential bridge across a stream to see if it was used and follow it, of course, the trail, and see if we can make contact and find out where they were. So that was my last mission, which I don't know. You see, I'm trying to make sure my jewels are protected because you can see we didn't have harnesses. You can see that rappelling rope is just a rope. If you look at some of the other Team pictures, we had a rope, and so you just knew how to tie it and put a D-ring on there, and then you would put your rappelling rope. And you certainly wanted to make sure, because jumping with 100-pound pack and all of your other equipment, web gear, and everything else. Now you can see that I actually have the radio because I'm the team leader, and I wanted to make sure that I knew what was happening, because my whole goal was to get through the mission, any mission, without getting anybody hurt, wounded, broken leg, or anything else. So I wanted to know what the radio, what was going on. You can see the guy on the left there with my modified peace sign over to the left. He would have been the guy that, I don't know if we called him belly man, but he would have been laying on the floor. And you can also see over to the left is the rope that we'd kick out with a 2x4 right there, that we would wrap around the D-ring that's in the middle of my crotch up there. You can see the gunner, you can see the smoke grenade on, that's the door gunner. Lieutenant's got the helmet on, rest of the team. Charlie Ochoa is straight in the back there.
Did those leather gloves help with y'all rappelling on that rope? It still looks like that might get pretty dadgum hot rappelling in.
Well, depending on how fast you were rappelling, but they were okay if you did just a standard rappel, didn't have any problems or whatever. But that was actually my last mission before I became a training NCO.
We definitely will have to end up talking a bit more about that, but in line with completing your in-country training and everything, are you immediately doing that and then placed on either team 3-2 or 3-4, or do you go immediately to Recondo school, or what's your rotational period?
What happened is, after you finish the in-company training, which included daily PT, can you believe waking up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, getting out there, running around the outside perimeter yelling, "Airborne, airborne, Jody's got your girl, your mom wears combat boots." Yes, we did all that, while all the regular soldiers were looking at us saying, "You're one stupid bunch of crazies," in the morning out there. So you had, if you successfully completed, you had to complete the physical part of it. We'd put sandbags in backpacks, and that's how they ran, with a sandbag in their backpack. You had for your final exam, of course, you had exams after you did your map studies or your intel gathering and all that kind of stuff, calling in artillery. Then you went on a 5-mile run, and you had so much time to make it around the base and get in. If you made it in time and you successfully completed all of the academic or the military type stuff, you also had, and this is very important, one of the main team members, of course, is the medic. So you had medical training. Okay, not a whole lot of medic training, I guess. I periodically check to see if I can, if my chin is blown off or whatever, if I can do the tracheotomy to get you to breathe.
Oh.
You've had to use a lot of that training in the field if one of your people got wounded or whatever. So it was an all-inclusive. I thought it was a pretty good training program. But then you had a formal MACV Special Forces. So that one you didn't go to until you had been out on missions, live missions, for probably, like, I didn't go until, I want to guess, maybe May or sometime. I've got my certificate in there whenever that was, but that was a formal MACV training program, and that was put on by the Army. One of the important things about that training was that it was considered graduation was considered a live fire exercise. And what Bud is showing you there is that this was actually my last mission there. You went on 3 missions into the jungle. That map there is where we went in, where we went each day, contour lines and all that. And what we did, if we successfully completed that mission and then come back to get the helicopters to come and get us back to the train, then we would have graduated from MACV Recondo School. There's a certificate. What's the day? Oh, it is May 69, and I'm 2,190 who had completed the course.
You're in the, I've got the history of the Recondo School, and I actually looked it up this morning, and you were actually in their book. So that is the legit thing, not just having your graduation certificate, but you are in the annals of history, and it's saved in the book.
Right.
Can we've heard, or I've read and we've heard from some of the SOG gentlemen who were either with Project Delta and ended up going to Recondo School, and from other Rangers, and talking about how much how great it was being able to soak up knowledge from some of the Special Forces guys that were teaching y'all. Could you tell us a little bit about what it was like learning from some of the Special Forces guys?
Well, they kind of, once again, back then, it wasn't one of these, oh, we can't cuss at you or we can't yell at you, but they were pretty tough. Of course, they had primo duty being there, except when they had to take the individual teams or the newbies out into the jungle for the live fire. I'll give you an example. I'm not a great swimmer. Okay. Even though I was from Southern California, my mother would say, "Don't go near the water. Look at all the surfing. Oh, please, don't go near the water." So I knew how to swim, but I didn't know how. I wasn't a good swimmer, I was more of a football guy. But in Recondo School, you had to swim out in the South China Sea.
Oh.
So one of the things come swim day, and they had the cadre out in a rubber raft out in, I don't know how far, but so they say, anybody can't swim or don't know how to swim, come over here. And I figured, well, I could be a sissy and go over there. Nah, I think I can make it, because you're looking out in the ocean from the beach and the waves are going. No boat, where you're looking out, you don't see the boat, and then you see the boat, then you don't see the boat, so it wasn't nice and glassy like a pool. It was the South China Sea. And I'm going, no, I can't be a sissy. I mean, they might kick me out too, and then I'd be the laughing stock in the area. So they go, okay, you got to go swim out there, swim around that rubber raft, and swim back in here to qualify. So I'm swimming, and the whole crowd of swimmers are taking off, and I'm still swimming and swimming and swimming. And I'm going, holy moly, how far out is that boat? So I get to the boat, talk about how these guys were. I go, hey, man, hey. And I go to lift my leg up to put it in the boat, and they pushed it back. What the hell are you doing? You can't get in this boat. I said, well, what am I supposed to do? And you had these old Mae West life jackets on, right? And he says, well, blow up your life vest. And I go, how? Where's the button? I figured, this is 1969. You pull the rope, the thing inflates. Crap. He says, blow it up. So I'm out in the middle of the South China Sea, one arm on the stupid raft, then laughing at me. I've got the rubber thing in my mouth going, you know what it's like when you blow up balloons or certainly something like that? My head's going, whoa. I finally decide I'm wasting more time trying to get a little bit of air in that thing. So I turned around, took off towards the beach. Once again, the old, so the guys are hard asses. They had, to be a training NCO, I think, like I was, you had to have a sadistic streak in you, I think. So the special forces, which would give you a lot of good insight on their training or what they experienced or whatever, rifle range and everything else. But these guys are just asses. So I'm turning around, and now I don't see the land. And I see the land because, the waves got a little harder. And I'm just going, I ain't dying in South China Sea drowning. Because I don't see no lifeguard towers out in that beach. It's not like being at Redondo Beach or Torrance or in Southern Cal. And I'm just stroking and stroking, trying to keep my head above water. Now, there's nobody out in the water. Actually, there was probably 3 or 4 people behind me that was still slower than I was. Thank God they didn't have a time on getting in. And all of a sudden, I touched sand, in my downstroke. So instead of jumping right up, I just walked up to the beach and stood up, crawling along the sand that I could touch on the bottom. Boy, other than that, it was a great time at Recondo School. Recondo School, I forget how many, it was at least a couple, 2-3 weeks also. But you didn't get that training until they knew that you were going to stay in the Ranger company, because a lot of people, there's a training class. That looks like some train. Yeah, that's probably a Recondo, up at Recondo School. We had such things as, the Starlight scopes that were as big as a computer is now that you could carry. But, helicopter training, you had ladder climbing, you had to climb up the one side through the helicopter and down the other side. And if you didn't like heights, you would have never gotten through the training. But it took a lot of guts, but
Nothing seems harder than there you are running out of the jungle, and that's what you got between you and getting to freedom is that flimsy. Although they do have the bigger rope ladders and such, but boy, that thing looks like it would be hard to climb with the adrenaline going and all of that. That's
Oh yeah. And when you're in, you've just had contact, and you're going to you break through the canopy. Of course, you're on the ground. You run through the canopy. Now you're in the open space where the helicopters should be landed. And you look, and the helicopter is about a half a mile up the open field. That's kind of a heartbreaking when you're being chased, or you knew you just had heavy contact or any contact, and it was time to get the heck out of there. Our missions throughout the 14 months that I was there changed from, because each mission you got briefed on who was potentially out in the area. We usually had a 4 grid square area to search. So who was there, what kind of unit was possibly there, what they had, and what they wanted you to do. Is some missions were just don't make contact, just observe. Some of them were make contact, blow the ambush, there was a standing order to capture
POWs.
Prisoners, which our code name was called Mississippi's. We had code names, we had codes when we called back, and another thing is if we had movement at night, there was a method that we could contact without saying, slashing talent, this is slashing talent 3-2, contact over. Because another thing that we did is that we didn't talk above a whisper the whole 3 to 5 days that we were out on that mission. So my wife asked me even today, why do you talk so loud? Well, because I spent 14 months not talking to me. And I'm sure that's part of the reason. But you didn't, you whispered. You had the headset setting here, so it was turned towards your ear. And another thing that I was thinking of the other day, you know how many baggies in our house we go through? Plastic baggies. Well, we had baggies back then, but they didn't have the nice little strip on them. You know, they were the old fold type. So you had the headphone in
plastic baggie,
covered up in plastic. That plastic would make noise. We didn't carry a musical radio. My gosh, we certainly wouldn't have one of these out there. But we didn't talk. We didn't speak above a whisper. When we sneezed, we did one of these.
Just capture it all. Just
yeah. And, if you've ever sneezed like that and kept it in, your ears kind of rang a little bit.
A little painful. Yeah. Could you and you got a diagram of it of several, and we're going to end up talking about the POW mission, and we've got some great questions as well. But to kind of start leading into your first mission to talk about it, could you talk about the first team and your first team leader that you hooked up with and what they were like and what your first mission entailed?
Okay. Yep. Actually, I've got a picture of the team. The first picture, team picture that is in that presentation. That was my first team, that one there. I'm the one on the left. Tom Chambers is the guy in the middle, and he's carrying the grease gun. And then Cochran is the guy on the right. And then the guy just down in Cochran was the ATL, which was, his name was Whitey, I believe. And then James Seymour, the guy that's kneeling, and you can see how he carried his extra ammunition.
What are those called? I see a lot of the guys would do that.
Bandoliers. That's a bandolier with the, those are the M70 or the M16 or Car 15 ammunition that's in, it's already in the magazines.
I can see two of the guys have Car 15s at least right here, 16 and then a grease, but that's pretty interesting. That'll come up later when we talk about weapons. But yes, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead with your new team or first team.
Okay, and I was the radio operator because I was the new guy. You can see the short whip antenna. You can see Willie Pete grenades right there by the, right there. Smoke grenades, grenades. So we were, plus in the pack you had claymores, toe poppers, duck cord, blasting caps, C4, sticks of C4, water, and then of course your LRRP rations. We carried LRRP rations, which were dehydrated, standard now, I guess, for most of the Army. So all we had to do is heat water and pour them into the plastic bags to eat, which saved a lot of weight.
I can imagine. It's really neat. If people ever are familiar with Uncle Ben's, it looked almost like Uncle Ben's boiling a bag rice, and y'all would have the meals in that. And I thought that was so cool, finally seeing that they had boil in a bag long before today. That's just really cool how y'all had that.
Yeah, and that was actually the pictures in front of the, you see the building behind, that was the headquarters, the company lieutenants and captain and that were there. The tent to the left would have been I think that was a supply tent.
Oh.
Okay.
And is this where you guys would be literally right here is the last stop before y'all load up on choppers to head out?
Yeah, that would be the last stop. What we'd do is every team that went out, before they went out, we took a picture, and they kept the pictures in the office there in an album. And this would have been one of the pictures that they had taken. The other thing that people ended up having is Spanky, James Seymour, the guy in the bottom there, the team leader at that time, this was his third time in Vietnam.
Jeez.
So his nickname was Spanky. So, and you know, I'm not sure if they call me anything other than ass something. But he went by the secondary name of Spanky, like our gang.
Uh-huh. Like Little Rascals, he was y'all Spanky.
Like the Little Rascals, right.
That's great.
Okay, so that was the first mission. And what they did is when you went out in mission, now this is kind of a scratch up of the first mission. over to the left where it says tree line, there's a little arrow. And we went in, one helicopter went in, jumped off, not jumped, stepped off the helicopter. And I went in to the jungle, a few feet into the jungle. First thing you did is when you got off the helicopter, you always went around the nose, and you didn't get off the helicopter till the team leader left the helicopter, because he's the one that's responsible. He's the one for the final decision. And I remember getting off the helicopter, moving to the tree line, and waiting for everybody else to come around the helicopter and get into the tree line. And then we would stay there for a little bit to monitor the field where the helicopter just landed. And it might have only been a break in the canopy, no bigger than the helicopter blades. Or it could have been bigger than a football field opening. And I remember moving into the tree line, and I'm still looking into the trees, and I heard a metallic, like when you seat your bullet.
Oh.
And next thing I know, the team leader's up to me, and he goes, I'm 6'2", 1, I don't know, I may be 5'2" right now, but I'm over a 6-footer. Spanky was probably 5'5", so he wasn't that tall. And I remember looking down at him, and he's looking up, and he's saying, "Did you do that? If you make a noise like that again, I'm gonna kill you." I go,
What me?
I'm a tough guy, you know. I don't take too much crap from little guys, especially. I look at him, and my brain's going. I go, no, it came from right in there. He thought I was bullshitting or something. I don't know, covering my ass because I forgot to put a round in when we got it, when we were still in the helicopter and coming down. So what we ended up doing then is, after he felt it was clear, we went from the left where it says tree line, and we walked out of the trees, because we actually went in, you either went in early morning or late evening, just before dusk, or just after sunrise. It was very seldom that you went in midday or anything like that. So I remember we walked up, and we came into this big triangle type thing. It was a big open area that used to be a bunch of rice paddies in there, but of course nobody was growing anything. So we actually came to that rectangle on the left, says rice paddy, and we waited there in rice paddy until the sun went down. Now, if you see where I've got one old dead, it's an old dead tree that was in the, maybe about 4 or 5 feet in from the other rice paddy. Well, I didn't know, because I was a new guy. All I was doing is reporting that we're stationed here, and we had to give periodic reports back to the rear area. That was my job. I was a radio operator. So he moved us in next to the tree, so that we had bad commo, so that we could take the tree and put the 292 antenna up again, the long whip antenna, to get better reception.
Wow.
Up against the tree. And then we fanned out putting our packs together, but laying around like a wagon wheel, but our feet pointing out. Yeah, I think there's, yeah, you can see there's we're actually pointing out. If you go back up to the other area, well, I was trying to get a little more creative. I brought color into that. But so we set up there. Remember, no noise, quiet. You didn't spread out a poncho or anything like that. You didn't have a raincoat, because what's a raincoat do? Make noise if it's wrong. The whole thing was noise being stealth. So we're set up, and I'm pointing where I've got the three little figures by the two. But all around this thing, there's just nothing but heavy canopy, jungle. Now this is going to be this is my first mission after training. And so I'm laying with my feet pointing towards the two right next to the trail. Of course, I didn't know there was a trail there, having been so new. So I'm doing what they told us to do, got the radio set up. And then somebody says, hey, we've got movement. And down towards the bottom where you see one, the number one, is about 15 guys came from the left to the right and then down on a trail. So we had 15, and I'm trying to remember, at this point, I think they were VC. VC are different than NVA. NVA is the North
Vietnamese Army.
Vietnamese Army. At this time, it was VC. They had most of them had their AK-47s, but they were carrying heavy machine guns, RPG rockets, machine guns and RPGs over their shoulders, and they were just kind of marching. Then they went down. Well, it had already become dark. And so Spanky called in a fire mission, which what he was doing was trying to estimate how long that column would take to get further enough away from us so they wouldn't suspect that somebody's out there come looking for us in the middle of the night.
Wow.
Now you got to remember there's no street lights or no light from anything in this case other than the moon or the stars, and there is a lot of light from the stars. So he called in an artillery strike. Now we don't know if they hit anybody or not. So then we started our rotation of guard duty. Guard duty was you had 1 hour, then you woke up the guy to whichever way you were going, to the right, to the left, woke up the guy next to you and handed him the headset and said, okay, it's your turn. So it eventually got to be my turn, and I had the headset. Well, I had the whole radio in my pack, but I had the headset, and I was on guard. Well, if you can imagine laying on the ground and your shoulders or your head is maybe a foot above, what would you see if you could see somebody from the waist up silhouetted against the sky? Okay. So we knew we had movement, and this is how we would have been situated. But I was like the one to the top left. So the trail was going up and down in that case. That would be the wagon or the pinwheel. I'm pretty sure everybody did that because that also was what was trained on in
Recondo school.
Recondo school. But I started, one thing you did is that, okay, let's get the intelligence. You don't want to necessarily in the dark of night grab your gun or your rifle, which was laying directly to the right next to you, right on your right hand side. If you're right-handed, left, I'm sure if you're left-handed, and grab your gun and start shooting, even though in this case the guy was no further from me than maybe five feet. But I'm sitting there, so you're saying, okay, first thing we need to do is see how many of they are. So I count one. And it must have taken, or it seemed like taken, an hour for the next guy to come by. So I count two. And then I count three. But now remember, I can see him silhouetted against the sky from the waist up. But what I'm seeing is a shaggy head person. First guy's got his AK-47 slung, no packs. The next guy's carrying, in this case, he was carrying an RPG. The next guy's got a heavy machine gun. Now I've counted 1, 2, 3. Once again, I'm trying not to move, even though I'm a new guy. I ain't gonna run and get my gun and save my life. By saving my life, it's holding all your urges, your fight or flight situation. And I count 3. And I'm waiting for the fourth one to come. Because remember, we had 15 down on the other end. And this trail that we were set up right next to, even though we also had our claymores set out, so we could have blown our claymores. So I'm waiting and I go, okay, don't wake up the team leader, don't wake up Spanky, but I got to let him know that we just had 3 of them walk by us. So I waited a few minutes and waited to make sure that they got away from earshot. So I wake up Spanky and I say, we just had 3 walk by us. And I just found out he wrote a book, and he's got in his book that he says he doesn't believe the new guy that claimed he just saw 3. Well, I tell you what, Spanky, we'll talk about it at the next reunion. But so he had then called in artillery, and don't know what happened, but they went the same way that the other 15 had gone down. So now we're going to move from the tree that gave no protection. Once again, this was an old rice paddy or a series of rice paddies, so it was all open. And so I'm on my knees putting the radio away, and somebody says, we've got movement. So if you look from where the tree is to the far right, I look up, and those guys, there's 3 of them with heavy packs coming towards us, or down the hill. It was a slight hill. But they stopped for a minute, lifted up, looked at us, made eyeball to eyeball contact,
Ooh.
then put their heads down and continued to walk towards us. Well, by that point, everybody had their rifles, and so we opened up on them, even me, while I was calling in contact, slashing talent contact, team 3, I think we were 3-2 at the time, contact, send a pink team. Pink team was a Cobra and a Loach. And I think I've got a, yeah, that's what we called, that was our code name for the pink team, was the Loach and a Cobra. And boy, I tell you, when both the pink team, the Loach, and the Cobra got on site, I mean, thank God. But anyway, all hell broke loose. And so we're waiting for the pink team now. And when they got there, we moved from the open back to the rear, back into the rice paddy, because this rice paddy had higher dirt on them, so that we had some protection, because we don't know if there was just 3 that we saw and there was maybe another 15 behind, or where did my 3 guys go? Were they all going down, the south and or the bottom of my picture there, and they had a bunker maybe they had a bunker complex shortly down. So when they heard all the firing and everything, you got to remember 5 guys who know, 5 or 6 guys that know what they're doing. It's like hell warmed over. We also had the M79. Let's see, I think. The M79, I think Tom Cochran had up there with his grease gun. You got all that stuff opening up, and it's not like some of the movies we hear now. Yeah, I'm gonna fire. Is it okay if I shoot?
No, shoot away, shoot away.
We may be giving them some intel, and they say, okay, go ahead and blow your ambush, but it's the initial decision, or throwing grenades or whatever. One thing that we also carried was
Willie Pete. Did y'all use
the law.
the laws? Oh,
yeah. I didn't see one there, but you usually had a strap to your pack. So we were lethal. So we pulled back, and the pink team came, checked the tree lines, covered us while the Huey was going to get us out of there. But before they left, the team leader and the ATL went across the field into the jungle on the right-hand side to see if they could find anybody and get the intel off of them. The intel could have been maps. In their case, they found packs full of rice, and that's what they were carrying. Then we got out of there and went back. Now, you usually stood down for 1 to maybe 3 days in the rear area. You can see that's Captain Passarelli and Lieutenant Rice. The guy on the left is he was a strict little son of a gun. He was a good leader. Lieutenant Rice was also the guy on the right, but he took care of us. So we got out and come back, and then we stood down. One thing about Natrang or Recondo school, I'll remember now. this picture that you're showing downtime, yeah, that's what it looked like all the time. I don't think so. Hey, you want a steak? No, no, they didn't feed us like that. We had a mess hall and we wandered over to, I don't know what that was, maybe a holiday meal or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
Special occasion, get down.
yeah. Well, we did get free beer while we were there and back in the company area. I don't think I ever paid for a beer, but anyway, you got beer. And then you waited for them to call you up on the next mission. It could be a day, it could be 3 days. It was very seldom uh, less than 3 days or more than 3 days.
I'm currently reading a book about a gentleman in Company F, and I'm not sure if that was the 173rd or what unit he was a LRRP with, but he had mentioned that they were on stand down and would mention they do what training they could, but sometimes they were forced to actually do fill sandbags. Some guys would get in trouble and have to dig ditches or whatever. Were y'all ever forced to do manual labor, or were y'all, not to say y'all are cut above, but were y'all far away from that where y'all could train and get ready and rest up for the next operation, or were y'all having to work hard as well?
Well, yeah, I've filled my share of sandbags. Because you had sandbags don't last that long, so you'd have to rebuild some of the fortifications around your company area. Yeah, no, it wasn't sophisticated where they had grunts doing all the stuff for you. No, you had to. If you got in trouble, you got kicked out of the company, and then you had to go with a regular unit. But I tell you, I'm glad I was with this unit, and I would never trade it for anything. If I had to go back again, I would do the same thing because you had control, you had the ability, and to think about it, to be within feet and pick up your claymore, for example, the next morning, and actually have enemy's blood on the claymore. Now, claymore, I don't remember how long the wire was, but to be that close, not make a sound, not make breathing, not sneeze, knowing that if he moved or if he saw you, it was him or you, is incredible, in my opinion. There's not many people that can stand face to face with a fight.
No, I
And
mean, you
either
guys, I mean,
run the other way or no, it's incredible. And I still have that ability now. Probably too much, even though I don't look like
your
you saw
younger
this.
self,
Would
but
you
you're
be
still,
afraid of it now? I don't think so. I don't know. But no, it was something.
yeah. I mean, you guys would have to also, I mean, as we're about to move on, because people are interested in some of the photos that leads to a good mission story. But I mean, y'all had to be so finely tuned, mentioning the claymores. I mean, it wouldn't put it past the NVA or the VC, whoever y'all are up against, to attempt to get up close, depending on how far the line, the deck cable, the deck cord line was, to turn the claymores around on y'all. So I mean, y'all had to be careful and be on point at all times during the day, especially once you put claymores out, because I mean, it could go wrong and them to sneak in and twist it around on y'all. We've heard several guys talk about, luckily they didn't end up getting ambushed or them carrying out the attack, because they found their claymore switched around in the middle of the night.
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've got some wonderful photos. There's going to be several when we've got some great questions, but I was curious if you could talk to us about the codename Mississippi mission, the POW mission that you ran.
Okay. Well, I was the ATL on that mission. Sergeant Carroll was the ATL. Standard SOP was to capture a prisoner. I mean, that was the thing to do. Bring him alive, any gear. So this was just a standard mission. We got off the helicopter. I think we had a 6-man team. And we moved through the jungle like usual. Yeah, it was Stein, me, Carroll, Marquardt, and McEwen. I guess it was a 5-man mission. And we moved into the jungle. And we come across a well-used trail. You can see the trail. Well, I wish I had to enter some of these drawings in a contest, maybe the state fair or something. But so we moved from the left to the right, come across the well-used trail. Carol and I decide to attempt a snatch. We had no idea if we were going to be able to do this. So what we decided to do is we knew that the trail made kind of a U-turn. So there was this, on the bottom part, there was this whole open, almost straight trail. So Carol went to the other side of the trail.
Holy cow.
I went to the corner of the trail, right there where you got your little thing on, the ATL. Now I had complete sight of, depending on if the person came from the left to the right or the right to the left. So I had complete sight of both directions. Now we still had our packs on. We didn't take anything off. And then we set the other 3 guys. I was right on the trail, so if I reached my hand out, I could have touched the trail. That's how close I was behind some jungle foliage.
Wow.
The 3 of them, we set them up back a little ways towards the trail. Okay. My job was, of course, to monitor the trail both ways and to signal to Carol, the team leader, that someone was coming, get ready. So we're set up, and I see somebody coming down from the top of the little sketch to the bottom, and I signal to Carol that here comes somebody. Now his job was to jump out on the trail and try to snatch him or tell him to chew hoy. My job, of course, was to cover the rear, cover the back of the trail, and the guy that we were snatching. So I told him he was coming, and about the time that he passed me, and I was on the trail looking up and watching him walk. Carol stepped out on the trail about where the X is and said, chew hoy. Well, this was a VC, he took off running towards the jungle straight ahead. And we yelled, "Chuhoy." I had my sights on him by then, and I was about to let him have it because we weren't going to let him run into the jungle. At that time, he stopped, turned around, put up his hands. And I remember that this poor guy, his chest sunk in to his backbone and just out. That's how scared he was. You could see his chest go in and out, in and out. So Carol started tying him up. I'm still watching the other trail, the back trail. Our three guys come out. By this time, we've called the rear area and said, we've got a Mississippi. Now, we didn't know at the time that when we snatched him off the trail, and then of course we came in over to the right, so we were going out somewhere to the right. So the helicopter come in, got us, and if you slide down for the other picture, we didn't have any shooting or anything. That's the VC. He was actually a first lieutenant. There's Carroll with his hand. You can see his Willie Pete there. You can see the M79 grenade launcher on Whitey. And you can see James Stein. And this guy, so we're pulling him, and then you can go down to the next picture.
That's a great photo.
This is actually Phuc Vinh. You can see that 79, M79, you can see, and he's carrying a car. Both of them are carrying a car 15. But you can see that M79, it's like a cut-off shotgun, and the barrel's cut off too, the hand grip.
What's he got brought in all of this gear right here? It looks like he's got a bunch of...
Well, no, that's the pouch that we took off of that prisoner.
Oh, his stuff. Okay, okay.
Yeah. He had a 9mm pistol in there and all kinds of division level documents from the DC.
Damn.
Okay, go down to the next picture. It's just
another close shot.
Carol's on the left.
And the M14, that's a great M14 shot.
Right, James Stein there. I'm on the left.
So what you
meant. I had this picture in my office. I'm an accountant. And everybody that come in said, when did you shoot him? When did you throw him out? Why do you have that boy? I said, he's a prisoner of war. He's not a boy. He was a 35-year-old
man,
VC lieutenant. You can see his Ho Chi Minh sandals. See, I had a problem. They weren't that tall or that large, so I had to wait before I got a Ho Chi Minh sandal till somebody found somebody that wore a size 13.
I have to wait until you find a Chinese guy.
Yeah. Let's see.
That's a great photograph right there. All of these are, but that one and this one are great photos. There's your radio taped up in your plastic.
Right. You can see that behind is Phuc Vinh, so that was the base. It's not the city of Phuc Vinh, but it's where our base was. You can see we have C4. You can see the grenades. You can see Keith Marquardt was the radio operator. You can see how he's got the plastic all around the receiver. Let's see. Do we have any more prisoners on this one?
I'm 14. I'm surprised at all y'all's gear. That's a great gear photo. No, sir. We've got some photos of y'all outside hooches. Your rope set up with the
See
Maguire Rig.
the, yeah, that rope was used for everything. This was one of my
That's a great
this was
photo.
one of my prouder missions. One of the other rules that we had in the company area, you can see all the mud and the wetness on the back. And this is one of my prouder missions where I captured a bicycle. This is how they transported their supplies. You can see they took the chain, tied it up on the side. They had to load up the bike with rice or munitions or whatever. And then holding that stick, they would just push it through the jungle or down the trail. One rule was, I'm not sure what I'm drinking, but I must be drinking Slits. Looks
Would
like Slits or Black Label or something.
I think it is. It is. It's a Schlitz. I can see the can from here. I zoomed in a bit. Now, did you happen to look on this? Because I'm going to pull up a photo because this looks a lot like the same model bike. Could you see if this was made in China or anything?
No, I don't know.
Okay, because this is, and funny enough, not funny enough, but today is the day that Jerry Shriver went missing in action. And here's Jerry Shriver with one of the bikes they captured in Cambodia that had China markings, and the bosses weren't too keen of keeping that around with people, and people finding out that they had captured or ran into Chinese advisors and such. So he enjoyed dressing up in his pith helmet and riding around in his loincloth.
Yeah. No, I didn't notice.
That's and I'm glad you brought that up though, because people, and like you mentioned earlier, in your office, when did you kill him and all this crazy, like they've seen too many Hollywood movies. People don't realize, the NVA and the VC, the Vietnamese were probably the most experienced, or were the most experienced fighting group at that time. I mean, the work they did to make the trail from North Vietnam was a feat in its own, but to supply the troops down that was another feat with the trucks. But they also, as Mr. Dan mentioned, they would load, and we've got photos, I'll try and find one, but of them loaded down with rockets, rice, what have you, and it being so heavy that they're walking them down the trail in lines with bikes as far as the eye can see. I mean,
Well, they had trucks. We had been on a number of missions that when you found the trail was well used and it was large enough for a deuce and a half. So certainly towards the end, most of the missions that I had been on were with the North Vietnam regulars. They had a brownish, I guess, kind of a brownish uniform with a pith helmet on. So there were more missions with that than necessarily VC. As we got down closer to Saigon, uh, we had more VC action, from my experience, than North Vietnamese regulars. I
That's
mean,
I was curious about that because y'all and another thing the media got wrong, yeah, y'all all but wiped out the majority of the VC, and you had them having to link up with NVA units and help fill with them because there weren't enough VC left after Tet because they had been killed and captured. I mean, I was always interested in that, just how much y'all encountered the VC after 68, 69.
yeah, there were, well, you can see that was a VC lieutenant with a lot of division level documents. And I don't remember what part of Vietnam. It was in the southern part, closer to Saigon. So I'm not sure. At the time, I didn't keep up on that stuff.
He looks he looks quite healthy. He's got a fresh haircut. It looks like he was a good haul for y'all intel wise, because he doesn't look like he's
No,
been,
he's
you know.
and I will say that um, their soldiers, both the North Vietnamese and the VC, fought just as hard as we did. The sad thing, eventually, after being over there for a while, I realized that they cried like we did,
Mhm.
called for their mother like we did if they got injured, shot back when we shot them. Um, and the only difference was the language. And that's what's sad about any war, in my opinion. Uh, unless you get to a point where you're losing and you're just putting your arms up and wanting to get the hell out.
Yeah, God, that's so true. I mean, we've read accounts of guys feeling sorry, coming across injured, and them crying out, and them knowing that, like you said, they clearly don't speak the language, but they've seen enough men die, Americans and others, and to know that he's definitely calling out for his loved ones, or what have you, knowing he's about to die. And that's yeah, I mean, y'all are just out
Right.
there doing what the government and the y'all's leaders have told y'all to do. But there was one more mission, and we've got some great questions that'll tie us up till we end the show. But there was one slide, and I thought it might be interesting. I didn't gain much from it, but it's labeled your grandkids' favorite mission of yours.
Oh, okay.
I think it's involving maybe a snake or a log. Let me pull up our bridge,
Yeah,
maybe.
my grandkids always love this. I say, well, what'd you do, Grandpa? Now, my grandkids are in their early 30s now, so I was on one mission where we're moving down an animal trail.
Oh,
It
wow.
wasn't a well-used trail, but an animal trail. And I always walked point on my teams. Oh, that was the bicycle one. One of my yeah, you can see the bicycle. We captured the bicycle. So,
That's a good bicycle. You've got to start easing up on your artistic talents. I know instantly
yeah,
there's the bike.
yeah.
That's good.
But we're moving down the trail, and oh, you were talking about the downtime. The downtime, we didn't just get drunk or anything like that, but we exercised, we practiced, we had a patrol format that we followed. If we made contact, we had a quick reactionary type
IA
movement
drill
that
kind
we
of.
did, IA drill on the team. So we did all of that stuff too. So we weren't,
Party.
downtime didn't mean, and we filled sandbags and stuff like that. But downtime wasn't screw off time. It was to make sure you're getting ready, clean the equipment. Uh, but anyway, I'm moving down this trail, and one thing that you want to do is, well, the other thing is I could move, or we could move down a trail and not make a sound. in heavy brush, bamboo, you name it. Not make a sound. We were good. You know, we had a way of walking in the jungle, and you know, jungle isn't like a park out here where you know the grass is cut and the leaves are pulled up. But I'm moving down the trail, and I come across this log that's covering the trail from side to side, and the trail's no wider than maybe 6 inches, maybe a foot. So I consciously stop, pick up my foot, one of my feet, step on the other side of the log, and then do the same. Because if you stood on the log to get to the other side, it could be rotten. You could fall through it. It could be, you could make a lot of noise. It could be just a trap or whatever. So and then I continued down the trail, and when you're walking on the trail or you're walking anywhere, you're going to your area of responsibility and you're looking, but your peripheral vision catches the guy behind, then you go to the other side and it catches the guy behind on the other side. So you're keeping track of all that, and also counting the meters that you walk so you could find yourself on a map, you know, which way you're walking. So you got a lot going on. So I'm moving down the trail, and I happen to come and I notice that the team's way up on this other little slope. And I stopped and I alerted and I looked throughout the jungle to make sure that I didn't see anything. So I turned around and waved at them, and they all shook their head no. Now, I'm the team guy, right? I'm the leader. When do you say no to a leader? You know what I mean? And I'm getting mad, and I really moved my arm, you know. And they still said no. Then, but the next time I'm going, and I'm pointing my rifle at them. Yeah. You know, so they finally walk up to me, and all this isn't even in a whisper, it's just motions. And one of the guys says, forget who it was, looks at me and says, "You're one crazy mother Fletcher." I go, "What the hell are you talking about? Why'd you guys stay back there? Why wouldn't you come?" "Oh, we're waiting for the snake to go from one side of the path to the other side." And I looked back and I said, "There was no snake down there." Looked up the trail, and the trail was clear. The log that I stepped over had to be a python, like that movie Anaconda. If I had stepped on that, the snake may have come up and grabbed me by the head and shook me above him. I mean, to this day, I don't like snakes.
I don't like any the spider, snakes, or anything, but for you to see it and think it's a log, that's a big snake. I mean, for you to not even think it's a snake off seeing it, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and so, you know, I figured that's probably a better story to let the little guys know, the grandkids know, than, "Oh yeah, blew his head off.
The big creepy critter stories.
Rolled down the hill." You know, so.
Jeez. Was that the closest call you ever had with a snake?
Yeah, we used to see all kinds of creatures, elephants, snakes, tigers, wild boar.
Wow.
The place was amazing. The skies at night were just unbelievable. It was just like laying. When they say there's billions of stars in the sky, if you're in the city, you look up and you say, "I only see 3." in Vietnam, I mean, first time I laid down and got on guard duty, and man, it was just like a blanket of nothing but little dots.
I bet that is beautiful. I mean, I live in the country and I get to see stars, but I can only imagine going to
Yeah,
Vietnam to where there's literally no light pollution whatsoever and seeing every single star in the sky. That
yeah.
had to be a beautiful experience. Um, well, we have got a great batch of questions we'll end the show with. Um, and I'm excited to see because I think there's some good ones. Um, we might have covered some of them, but we'll see here. Daniel is curious. Could you describe what a typical long range patrol looked like from planning to extraction?
Okay. Planning the, I don't know, G5, G11 would let you know why they needed you to go out there. They would tell you where the area is. You would work with a map and the intelligence that they possibly already had. If you had any special needs, you would make sure that you took that with you. Um, you would plan where you would go in, looking at the map. You would also have an overflight the day before the mission, where you would double check to see what it would look like in real. Any openings in the canopy on the map, you just know where there's jungle supposedly, but not canopy, or you can tell mountainous terrain. So you would actually plan out where you would go in, where the extraction was, and what you were going to cover in that primarily 4 grid square area. Because when you patrolled, I don't know how fast we walked, but it could take an hour to go 50 meters, or more, depending on what the terrain was. So you had all that information. You also knew what your uh, evasion route was, where there was a close fire support base, or if you got into contact and you had to get out of there, you could take an azimuth to a fire support base to get rescued. But your extraction was planned, the date, the time. When you sent messages in and out from the team back to the company area, you sent them in code. Um, so you had a decipher on you. You had the standard slashing talent was the main call sign. So you had everything planned out. You tried to keep to the plan because the guys in the rear area that were monitoring you needed to know what the game plan was. If you were in contact, you also had to know where you were so that you could call in support. Because a 4 grid square area, 1,000 meters per grid square on one side is a pretty large area for a couple of bodies on the ground. Hope that helps.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And as you mentioned, when you got done with a mission, how long did you say y'all usually have a stand down? Anywhere from 3 to 5 days before you get thrown back into the
Um,
cycle?
Usually 1 to 3 days.
Oh, quick
Now,
rotation.
it wasn't a long time. I mean, the more teams they could keep out in the area, the safer the division was.
Roger that. Wow. Yeah, that's quick working. Let's see. Daniel again. He's got quite a few good questions. How often did your team come into contact with the enemy, and what did those encounters usually look like?
Uh, I would say that the majority of the missions, probably more than half, was just a boring walk in the jungle. The missions that you actually made contact, because not all of the missions were set to go out, find out what's out in the area. I mean, some of the technology that they have now, I mean, my God, I'd love to have it. It could be anything from snatching a prisoner off a trail, watching the enemy walk by, not blowing the ambush because there may have been
point element for
too many of them.
Mm.
Could be that you were chasing elephants and you were promised R&R if you brought an elephant in. I'm not sure how we were going to get the elephant or drag them in. So it depended. I mean, if they got enough of our guys' missions, we had one mission where we had 300 NVA set up around us.
Oh.
Right next to us, within 10 feet, all around us. We had other missions where we would watch them walk by. All they would have had to do is turn to the right, or somebody sneeze, or move a leaf, and I wouldn't be here talking right now, probably. So it depended. I don't think that there was a standard. The only standard was you were in Vietnam and you were doing a job to protect or warn a fire support base or a main base. They had the fire support bases that just out in the middle of nowhere. And you would fly in and then leave from that fire support base to go out on a mission. Or you would find a bunker complex that was blown up by Arcalite. Well, Arcalite is another code name for B-52 strike. It's just that being on the ground when a strike is happening is unbelievable. Walking through the after results, a lot of times they would have an Arcalite and have a team go in and hide because they'd come back and they'd try to get the ammo and their stuff and move it to the next bunker complex. So it was crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine what it was like seeing the results of an arc light, or even seeing one from a distance going off. Those B-52s dropping hell from above. Crazy stuff. Two great questions right here. You mentioned one just right then about 300 NVA, but what was the most dangerous or intense mission that you remember, and what made it the most intense mission?
Well, I would say the mission that where we had 300 camp around us or set up around us. When we moved in, we passed or stepped over a well-used trail. Could have taken a Jeep or a small truck. It was well used, so we moved into the jungle on the other side of the trail, set up our claymores, and then just prior to dusk, we were sprayed with 50 caliber machine guns. I think they had an action with part of the first cav up and to the way, but the 50 caliber machine guns were shooting, and then a little while later, We found people started to move down the trail, making noise, playing grab ass, carrying their wounded, crying. They were close enough that you could hear the canteen sloshing, the water in the canteen sloshing back and forth. And then it turned dark, and they usually didn't travel with flashlights. They would use flashlights more if they knew somebody was there and they were trying to figure out where they were. So they stopped and they decided to set up for the night. And they walked up through the jungle, stopped in front of us and all around us. And I think the one thing that I can say is that in all of the time that I was in Vietnam, I was scared, but not scared. On this mission, I was so scared that when you set up patrol and you sit down, you're sitting on top of the leaves or the jungle or whatever. You don't clear a path out of that jungle. You sit down on top of the jungle. And those leaves were making noise. That's how scared I was. And at that point, I negotiated with the man up above, where they say there are no atheists in foxholes. At that time, I may not have been an atheist just quite yet, but I negotiated. So it was the scariest and the team and probably the worst for me, having been 5-6 man patrols there. So
Wow,
that's one of them.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, that is hair raising right now with the 300 right there amongst y'all. I seriously don't I understand how y'all were able to pull stuff off like that and not move and cause a complete cluster funk of a situation and it go wrong, because that's as hairy as it gets right there. Daniel, this is a great question. What kinds of intelligence did you provide for the first cab? Did you guys get to see the results of your work in real time?
Yeah, a number of the teams had saved some really bad exposure. I think I want to say Buttons. There was a team that went out and they intercepted division level column, another one, not the one that I just talked about, that they called an airstrike on as they were sitting there monitoring it. It's a good friend of mine, Stanley Edwards, who was the team leader. He was my ATL at one time, and then he got his own team. But there were a number of missions that saved hundreds of lives or got the information to division level to save and help protect that base from a major attack. Yeah, you can see Stanley Edwards in the middle of that one. Yeah, that's Stanley. The one to the right is Jos. Can't think of all their names. But he was on a mission that they actually called, what is it, the F-16s or whatever they had in Vietnam to attack the column that was heading for, I think it was Buttons, LZ Buttons.
Gosh,
So
he's
there
got
were
a wall
a number of
right
them.
there. I just realized there you are with one of the guys carrying a law and the M79 with the M79 vest. Wow.
Yep.
Jeez
Yep.
Louise. Sorry about that. I just wanted to point that out. That's a great photograph.
Yeah, there I am in the top left of
Hang
that.
on, let me pull that back up. That is a good. I was gonna pull that up anyways. There we go.
Yeah, you can see I had the radio and the law.
I was curious if that was a law as well.
Yep.
M79.
I don't even remember this team, but it is me. The guy right there is Cochran. Um, I remember the faces, but I don't remember the mission.
I wonder what kind of bag is that?
Oh, he's got. I don't know. He may be just carrying extra ammo in there.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, y'all humped heavy. I'm sure some questions will come of because I think we've got a few camo questions coming up. We're about to wrap up here. We've got, I think, 3 more good ones, and I was curious about this because we've mentioned Kit Carson's a few times, and Jason was curious about, did you guys have Kit Carson scouts around, and if so, what were your thoughts on working with them?
Yeah, actually, I had gone on a couple of missions with Kit Carson's. Kit Carson's were people that were, you can see, no, that's Takadina. Let's see. No, people thought he was a Kit Carson, but he wasn't. His name's Takadina.
Oh, that's an American. Jeez Louise. I thought that was a
Yes.
Kit Carson.
No,
Wow.
but you can see Carol.
All the scrolls
That's
on there.
Stanley. I forget a couple of them.
Jeez, there I was messed up thinking that was a Kit Carson.
Yeah, we would have Kit Carson, and they were primarily prisoners that decided to help, and they'd give them their freedom, and they'd go on the teams with us. They didn't do any more than what they needed to. Most of them came back with the teams. Some of them I've heard that the Kit Carson went back to the other side, never did come back with the team. I don't know that I would have, well, like I said, I'd been out on a couple of missions with Kit Carsons. They were just a member of the team. They carried their packs and had live ammo, and if we needed them to show themselves, they might or might not. But we did have them, and we did use them. A lot of times, I don't know if I'd mentioned that we were guinea pigs. For example, we had a device that they wanted us to test when we went out in missions. It was a device that a sensor that you would put in the ground or stake into the ground, and it would let you know when somebody was coming down a trail.
Yeah.
If it beeped 4 times, it was on.
Yeah.
If it beeped 3 times, it meant there's some movement. If it got up to 1, you better look out, they're right there. I don't think it worked too good because it was attached to wires. And when it rained, that thing went off the chart beeping.
Oh, God.
But, and toe poppers, you know what toe poppers are?
Oh, yeah. Nasty little boogers.
Yeah, but you got to be on the other end. I don't think I'd be on my knees a foot away from an explosive device, setting it in the ground, pulling out the safety and resetting it.
No,
Anyway,
no, no. Um, we always get a good always curious about this, and Daniel is asking you in particular because we've got ERDL and Tiger Stripe photos. Which did you like best camo wise? Did you like the ERDL, the Tiger Stripe, or anything else? And which did you think worked best in the jungle for you?
well, I think the tiger stripes work better in the jungle because the regular camouflage was just a little too light in color. Um, Even though here, because I'm over, like I said, I'm a 6 footer. Uh, they didn't really make tiger stripes. I know Charlie found himself a set, but you can see that most of the guys that had tiger stripes really were shorter.
Skinnier, shorter, and skinnier, it seems.
Or skinnier, yeah.
And
Don't let Charlie know I called him skinny, but
and there was one interesting shot, or there's two. I kind of like the way this guy, and I'm not sure who he was with, but it's one of the vets sent this to me. He's got his Car 15 cut down short with a 20 round mag, but that ERDL looks really good. I like that. That bony cap's a little long and lanky out there floating around, but I like his setup there.
yeah, it was up to you how you wanted to, carry your stuff. We had some people carried sawed-off shotguns. So once again, it was
Oh,
entirely up to you that as
wow.
long as you carried enough ammunition. See, the problem with cutting the car 15 off, and the other thing is we didn't have 20 round mags. The
Yeah,
only thing we had was, we had the 18 round mags, but that isn't an extra long. Some of them,
that's the 30 round, I
I
think,
don't think
actually.
we had the larger magazines available, or I don't know if they didn't have it or they just,
I don't
I don't
think the
know.
30s came out till like 70 probably, because I think some of the saw guys actually had to order them back stateside actually. Um,
Right.
there's another photo of you with a somebody wearing a cool AK chest rig actually. Well, he's carrying an AK, so no
He's
wonder.
carrying an AK. That's Ernie Perez. He's from LA like I was. He was my ATL. He's passed away since, but he made it back from Vietnam. He was a good soldier.
Wow. And that's amazing. Like you said, I mean, you guys could literally carry anything from AKs to grease guns to if you could get a Car 15, M16s,
Well, see, I mostly carried a car 15, but I don't know why that's a full 16 there.
mm,
Uh,
I
it
think,
went back and forth depending on what was available or if you wanted to change. That's at a one of our get-togethers. Brought steaks in or whatever.
a few Bud Lights being drunk amongst the guys.
Yep. We
Um,
actually built that little EM club on the company area, but we stole everything there.
that's wonderful. I love y'all scrounging. That's amazing stuff. There's last two questions, one for me, and I'll ask because this last question the viewer has is a good way to close out. Did you while you were in country, did you know or did you hear about SOG or some of the special projects going on with special forces, or was it pretty hush hush with in the community while you were in country?
No, we weren't really aware of what else was going on or how we were linked up to the whole mission of the war.
Mm.
All we were trying to do is get drunk and get home.
I hear that. I hear that.
Get back stateside. Get back from that mighty pond or whatever. Yeah, one thing, many of us at the time, well, I can also talk about what happened when we got home, but maybe that's for another time. Many of us talked about getting out, but a lot of the guys in the company stayed in, a lot more than I would have figured. And they pretty much mostly retired as lieutenant colonels, full colonels, which I'm proud of because it's because of what they did and what they did after they left the teams. We had one fellow that went into special forces, and he was actually captured, and he broke out from his captors as a prisoner of war. And I haven't been able to contact him in the last 10 years, but he's a great guy.
Wow, what a man to go to the Rangers, the Special Forces, and then survive VC captivity. I mean, geez Louise. Jason, good question to close it. And yes, if you'd like to come back, we'd always love to have you come back and talk to us. But Jason, who were some of the men you were around that were, in your opinion, the best of the best that the Rangers had to offer?
Well, I would say some of them that I mentioned: Stan Edwards, Ernie Perez, Charlie Ochoa. There's a ton of them. I mean, there are so many guys that I'm proud of, and I'm still associated with. That it's a long list.
Yeah, it is. Mr. Larry Chambers, Gary Linder, Mr. Ochoa, Mr. Donahue, Ron Rucker, Mother Rucker. I mean, Craig Jorgensen. I mean, the Ranger list goes on for amazing men and soldiers. That's why we've been lucky enough to have a pretty good group of y'all come through and join us and share with us the past month or so, which we've been thoroughly thankful for to have y'all on. And like I said, you're always welcome to come back, and we'd love to have you anytime. And I was going to see, is there, as we're closing out for the day, is there anything you'd like to share or say before we shut down for the day?
Yeah, I wish that, the biggest thing, and I can certainly talk about this if I'm on another time. I don't want to take up a lot of time now, but it's how we were treated. It's how we were treated when we came back. All we were soldiers that was helping our country and doing our duty. Everybody in the Ranger group volunteered, and I think that's possibly why we got the majority of such incredible people. And they're still incredible people. If you look at what they've done in their careers and over their lives, they've done okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's how we were treated. And I'll just throw out, remember, for those of us that remember how the airports used to be, the San Francisco airport being processed up at Oakland, California.
My dad had nightmare stories coming out of there.
Yep. And, that's unfortunate. I don't blame them. I blame what they understood or what they told or talked about.
Brainwashed and thought they were doing something that made them look right or doing something righteous by assaulting men that had just served the country and coming back to try and get on with their life. It's I have a hard time getting over it. I'm glad some of y'all can forgive those people from the 60s, but looking back on some of them, it's hard to forgive. I've heard Dad told me some stories and when he returned home and the names that he was called and being spit on and shit thrown on him and stuff like that. And it just makes me sick to my stomach, but we would absolutely love to have you come back if you'd like to come back and share with us maybe next month and talk to us about your post-Vietnam and career and how you got on after the war, if you'd be open to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Well, I think that would be a good show and give us a good look at what veterans were going through and what it took to continue on after what y'all did in the war. I think that would be great. But I'll go ahead and shut us down for the day. And guys, y'all share it, like it, and if y'all can let people know and share this to where they can find it and support the Rangers. I'm going to be linking some of the Ranger fundraising units and some of the photo album places that I use to get Ranger photos into the show description. So check that out after you like it and watch it all. And we've actually got another Ranger, Mr. Ochoa, joining us tomorrow. So join us tomorrow. And Mr. Dan, thank you for spending the day with us.